Well, moving on. So broadly now, we're going back in 2 days for 4 weeks. Some of us are going remote, but how can we make the most of the situation we're in?
So I kind of think that the best way to make the most of the situation is kind of like taking it day by day. I'm a really big overthinker. Like I think about like myself in like the next 40 years, like what I do, what I am. I like to like plan things out like way, way, way far, like super far, like things that I don't have control over because I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, right? So I don't have control over what could happen tomorrow. I have control over what can happen today. So I would say like take it day by day. I think especially for Zoomers that are returning on Monday for the first time. I think it's really important to take it day by day and like let people know your comfort zones. Like if someone's coming like close to you, like you can say that like, I want a little bit of space. Like we can talk, but just a little bit of space. So I think that, and I think Mr. McKee like touched on this, but plan out this month in a calendar so that you know like what you're dealing with, like your finals, your possible AP testing, your possible projects that you have coming up, and then also plan out times when you're actually going to do them so you don't procrastinate and then you're going to have to like struggle in the future. um, but it's also important to allocate times like what Mr. McKee said, like about eating, sleeping, exercising, and like I said before, not procrastinating, and then also kind of touch on your pre-pandemic self as to what worked for you when it came to in-person learning. Like what did you like about school? And if you can recall some things about it, like was it hanging out with friends, like talking to them about like school and whatever? Is it sitting at the lunch table, or is it sitting at a specific lunch table that all your friends used to sit at before the pandemic? I say do those things. I say like allocate time for what you enjoy, for what you like to do. um, and I think that's it. Yeah.
I touched a little on it before, but about kind of, you're going to have to rebuild some type of routine in your habits and find that how you can, get through the day to day now that we're going to be, a lot of us will be back on campus. It's a really good opportunity though. Don't just rebuild it into like this mediocre way that works. It's a really good opportunity to build it out the best you've ever had it. And so while it can be a little bit nerve-wracking and a little bit scary, you have a really great opportunity to make it whatever you want it to be. So think big and think creatively, and I think you might even have some fun along the way rebuilding that routine.
I couldn't agree more. And I would also say perhaps think of it, if you are someone where you're going to be back with us also next school year. For me, I would think of it in many ways like a test run for yourself. So you can make the most of that time, make the most with other people. I also often say to my students, because a lot of what we do is collaborative, and that's been really hard to do virtually. So like, if you're going to be in a space with other people, make the most of that time with those people, because then you're going to leave and not be around them, right? So like, I try to think about savoring, relishing in the moments that we have. So perhaps it's really hard. I tend to be like Nora often, like I don't go as far, I don't go 40 years, Nora, but I tend to think big picture. And so sometimes I have to stop and just go like, what can I do to be present right now? Because so much of what I've been living in for the last year and a half is worry about what it was and worry about what it could be or what it will be. And now I'm like, all right, can I just be present with you in front of me? And like, let's be together. And that, I don't know, I've become much more into like I think books have become my friends. Like I've gone into a place of like really, really caring deeply about understanding people's thoughts. And I was reading this book also called Together. This is my current read. It's been helping. I honestly, like I needed something to try to bring me back to what it will feel like to be around people and around and how to make the most of that. And so a lot of what I've been thinking about and talking about is yeah, how do I purposefully do that? And like, how do I see every moment that I'm in a space with people as an opportunity for connection, collaboration, growth for myself, trying something new, maybe putting myself out there in a way that I hadn't before. And then if I need some space for me, I can always go take that. You know, there's nothing wrong with all of those. Like, there doesn't need to be an if and a then or an and, an or, it's all and. Like, we can try it all and see how it feels. And so I really want to approach this time as a time for me, even as a teacher, to think about, what have I learned from this last crazy year and a half, and how can I take the best pieces of it and infuse that into the way that I want to teach for next year, even, or the way that you want to do school for next year, the way that you want to feel at school. So I tend to be that person where I'm like, well, even though there were all these things that were really hard, like, what worked well? What did you learn about yourself? And like, what do I want to implement as I move forward? And how do I want to test some of those things out over the next 4 weeks?
Yeah, sorry to chime back in. I really liked what Miss Rothstein said about practicing on being present in the moment. And I think related to that is our minds always like flip-flop back from what's happening in the future, what happened in the past, what's happening in the future, what's happening in the past. And mentally, it's like, you know, it's like running back and forth all the time. And physically, obviously, if you've done that before, it's terrible and exhausting. And just if you do that mentally, it's exhausting and can be terrible. And that contributes to a lot of like this anxiety and different like kind of negative feelings, whatever they are. Or maybe not the feelings are negative, but the way they impact you can be negative. And so being present really helps you focus and feel exactly what's going on in that moment, and not just having your mind be exhausted all the time, flip-flopping back and forth between future and past.
Yeah, another thing that like Miss Rothstein and Mr. McKee both really harped on was just like, if you feel confident in going back in person, this is a great opportunity to, you know, come back better, right? Like, I've been treating the last few weeks and obviously going into this Monday as kind of like the first day of school or the first week of school, in the sense of I'm one of those people that like, when after summer's over and we're going back to school, I'm like, all right, how did I do last year? How can I do better? Can I actually get a good breakfast before I come to school, right? Can I maybe not hit the snooze button as much? You know, just things like that. And that's kind of how I treated these last few weeks as well. It's like, all right, how can I do better in person than how I was doing before? So if you feel nice and confident in like that you're already fine coming back, come back better, right? And I think everyone has the chance to do better. So this is kind of one of those opportunities instead of waiting another few months until we come back in the fall. Oh, another thing I wanted to say was just don't be too harsh on yourself. I think it's like really easy to assume that you need to like be able to do it all, in the sense of like, okay, we're going back in person, all of the classes, all these periods every day, AP tests are coming up, you know, all this stuff is happening. At least I know for my fellow seniors, it feels like we're doing all the senior stuff in like the span of like 2 weeks, which feels insane. And it feels like we're trying to cram all these like traditions and whatnot into like a very short amount of time. And I still don't even feel like a senior because I left the physical high school as a junior. Um, so yeah, I mean, just don't be too hard on yourself, and be proud and at least happy that some of these things are happening. Like, I do get to graduate in person, right? Instead of picking up my diploma from a car. And so these are special things that we get to finally have.